A hearty welcome to all our participants and the speaker and our Dean, Dr. P. Satish Kumar. We are on the 10th day of the Alumni Connect talk series, and we are overwhelmed by the support and participation from our patrons. Today's star speaker will be Architect Shiraz, and he'll be introduced by our Associate Professor, Professor Raja Mutaya, sir. Over to you, sir.
Hello. We welcome Shiraz to this forum. We also welcome all participants. Shiraz is a project architect and technology specialist in leading German firm, KSP, Juran Engel Architects, Frankfurt. He is also a lead green associate, and he has a very good history of working in prominent architecture and planning practices in India and Europe. Shiraz has a master degree in specialized in advanced architecture design from Studel Schule Architecture class, Frankfurt. He has worked under the supervision of Professor Ben van Berkel, founder director of UN Studio, Amsterdam. Shiraz is a well-traveled and informed with the discipline of architecture. He believes good architecture is the most simplest and elegant response to the urban issues and requirements. He keeps himself updated through international biennials, expos, and conferences. Now I present Architect Shiraz. Shiraz is happy to share his experience to students, a glimpse of his European architecture experiences. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you, Professor Raja, and thank you to SRM and all the faculty members for the opportunity to connect with the students. It's been a long time. I want to share my few of my experience, whatever I learned in the last decade, I would say, after passing out from SRM. And I hope I bring in some value and some positive thoughts to the students. And I start with the presentation. So, yeah, I've made a compilation of a few of my experiences in mainly Germany and Europe. So I had split into three categories. First is a little of academic segment, and there is also work and few suggestions from my end. I hope it helps. And academic, there will be two video presentations which should be played at the end of the presentation. It's quite interesting one. So and the work, I have a few competitions and mainly facades I would be showing, but due to confidentiality reasons, I will be sharing whatever few parts of the projects could be shared. And coming to the academic part, it's an installation what we did from the university in Frankfurt. It's called Orchestra. It was along with the Austrian light designers for a light expo in Frankfurt. So basically, we had it's done using Grasshopper and the Rhino, and it's a mesh model with around 7,000 pieces, and several. Initially, we had done a basic prototype, as you see here, and several joint study were done, and the most feasible one were used and applied. And if you see on the right hand side, you could see how the LED light strips are kind of embedded. And this is a basic concept section. If you there are two layers. There's the internal layer and the external layer. And the inside void is where the aluminum strips, the LED light strips run. And you could see a small node section also here. So this is a basic principle of the whole form. And we also had used two types of LED systems. So at the end, this was the whole form on an urban plaza. It was well received by the public and the media. It was more like an interaction because light, as well as there was also smoke emitted by using equipments. And overall, it was a very intriguing and a fantastic effect for the public. A video of this would be played at the end. And another small project, university project, which I would like to share is field manipulation, I call it as. Basically, we were asked a random task quickly to do a clay model, and with a short half an hour time. And the tutors told the patterning effect is something unique in whatever I've done. And we were asked to digitize our special features. So this is a digitization process in Rhino, how this patterning effect came. And this was taken into Grasshopper and multiplied to see what are the more effects we could bring with the patterning. And later, this effect or the tooling mechanism was again used on this clay model to see what are the various effects. And this same principle was applied on few platonic solids. And these primitive solids, if you see, it has wonderful effects. It's more a non-linear approach, I would say. And each solids have some or the other spatial potentials. And the end of this research, I kind of conclude that my tool is more like a sectioning profiles. So they have a we could kind of embed certain kind of sectioning profiles, and it could be used for upward movement, uh, circulation openings, floor and roof connections, or a canopy. So this task, a small project was, we had to embed these principles onto a site. So basically, this is a site, a topography, and I was quite intrigued by the urban field. So I traced the urban field using a mesh surface. And between the site, if you see, there is a part mesh which is kind of mapped, and a base geometry was formed. And later on, my tooling techniques I had used considering the spatial requirement, the small spatial requirement. Initially, they needed a small ticketing counter and a small gallery space, and the gallery space were divided into two. So I had used these insertions, the tooling insertions, one at the side, one at the bottom, and one at the top. So the whole mass is kind of deformed, and this gives a upward and a downward movement, also connection to outside and towards inside. So, and at the end, they kind of come out with the last insertion at the bottom. And if you see, it's a basic simple spaces. So entry, you have a lobby, two types of gallery and exit. And because there is a upward movement, it creates a kind of gallery space and a cafeteria space below. So this is kind of a very intriguing, a non-linear approach, I would say, something we took from non-linear thinking. And coming to work part, I will just show a small, a very simple competition we had attempted in Shanghai. It's a renovation of a stadium. And the stadium was very banal, very boring, as you could see. There is no feel to it, no language to it. So I had attempted such that a very simple approach, trying to really map the geometry, how to simplify the geometry. So initial was this whole vertical elements were traced to have a nice ending roof cap, very simple. And also this projection, a glass projection is also abrupting the whole form. So this whole bottom band was also introduced. And more public plaza connections, elevated ramps were also introduced. And at the third, my very fine fins were also introduced for a visual barrier cut. So this is my approach, I would say, very simple, very clean, try to address the issues and have an elegant response. And this was a additions what you have done. We had a small addition on the gym building, the main stadium, and the whole plaza and the ramps. So this is a conceptual sketch or a conceptual render. You could say a very clean, simple form, which is kind of tuned up from the previous one. And for the gym one, it was a very banal cylindrical block. So we had attempted to introduce a sculptural staircase to it. And also the client also needed an LED strip, an LED display. So we had try to loop an LED spirals on top of this building with post-tension cables. You will see a basic schematic section for it. And at the end, we were almost at a win-win situation, but due to few financial things, we had got the second place for this international competition. And this is the end product. So we have the complete linkage and of the urban plaza, and the whole event space is kind of enhanced. Second topic is about timber structures. And if you could see that timber as a material is really growing in the European as well as in the American market. It's very sustainable. So a lot of big renowned firms are trying to experiment with timber structures. So we had also opportunity to try out the timber structures into one office and a hotel project. So one, if you could see, it's more like a X bracing. The structure X bracing is being used, and more like a hexagon. I was happy to crack some nice hexagonal niche balconies. And on the second project, on the right hand side, you could see it's a hotel, more like an Adidas symbol, more like a tilted Adidas logo, you can say. So those are also like a balcony members or supporting members. So this is the end product what we got from the office block. It's near the near the media harbor of a German city, and this office spaces has also this smoke balconies, as you could see, very neatly, very simple, elegantly integrated, and these horizontal members. It's very calm, very straightforward, and really, and the client also was very happy with it. And there's a night shot with the structure and the facade. And this is the other attempt for the hotel, which we had tried. So it is basically that pattern. You could see a pattern embedded to the horizontal, to the vertical structures, like a diagonal pattern. That gives a totally new look towards to the building. And other topic is the grids. What I would like to touch on, Germany, as it's quite conservative, I would say. We have very little scope to play around. So we have only some scope to play in facades, and that's also minimal. We cannot have too much of projection. There's also budget. So we try to play with so much constraint. What we could do the best. So here I have two projects and two finished projects coming up. So this is a project where the volume was too massive. So we had tried with a minor interplay of volumes, subtraction and addition, a push and pull. You could see that the middle flow, there is a split, and the whole volume is kind of shifted. So that kind of breaks the whole massive volume. And with the facade modules, we had tried with the bigger modules and the smaller modules to have an interplay with the elevation. And even this recess also indirectly depicts the entry to the building, and it kind of splits the whole volume into smaller volumes. And this is another attempt what we tried, because here also we have a huge restriction to sync with the surrounding. So it's a very strong, rigid German raster grid, I would say. And here we had tried to embed a minor gradient, some effect, some kind of a extra effect to the building. So here what we have tried is the whole facade, the glass panels comes out as it goes up. So it's like a translucency of the structure increases as it goes higher. And this is one of a finished project, the same grids. Here it's a finished project in Frankfurt for Deutsche Bank. And basically here the grids are split into modules, and modules we had embedded minor deflections. So at the end of the day, this beautiful, it's like crystalline structure, and it's more like a showstopper also for the street. Everyone slows down and has a look. It was highly it's a highly acclaimed project by KSP Frankfurt. And this is also another attempt for an office building, and it's not too complex, but the whole idea of having a background, contrasting background, and the whole modules kind of minor interlocking creates an effect. This is also one of the highly appreciated office projects because of the whole feel, and the feel is given to the urban surrounding. And another few trial was more with fins and lamellas, a minor play what we had tried out. So this is another project near a water body, and we had a small issue with the corner plot. It was too sharp at the end, and obviously the clients needed those area as well. So we had to take those area also, but we did not want to have a very sharp corner. So we had mildly filleted or smoothened the edge. And as per the urban bylaws, we had to also introduce a arcade at the front, and we also introduced the roofing green landscapes at the top, so the people can have a better look outside. And we also try to introduce small retail and office F&B spaces at the bottom, which looks out to the greenery. So at the end of the day, the result was this. We were very happy and glad. So we had vertical metal fins, and we also played with the roof. Sorry, not the roof slab, the slabs, the floor slabs. Mild interplay with the floor slabs. And if you could see that these mild interplays also emphasizes the entry indirectly. So there is a main entry and a secondary entry. So it's kind of a very harmonious, very gentle play with a rich look to it. On the other side of it, and we also had introduced a mild gradient opening for the bottom facade. So the retail and entry is emphasized. This is another project we tried in East Europe, but this is the picture. What you see is a proposal from another architect, and the city was not happy, and they didn't agree with the client to go ahead with this. They told it's too boring. It doesn't go ahead. We want something which syncs with the surrounding and a bit more harmonious. So it was also quite tough to attend this because we had two forms, two volumes embedded. We have this L form you could see in this aerial view, and the H form. The L form earlier was a office building which was converted by us as a hotel building, and the H form is a housing project. So what we had tried is this corner at the edge corner was quite tough, and we cannot make it too complex because there were a few historical buildings on the side, and the city wanted a structure or a language which kind of syncs with the whole surrounding, but yet something modern and something new. So this was the end. After a lot of tryouts, we kind of came out with this result. So in the front, you could see there is a hotel project for Marriott, and at the side there is luxury apartments. So we had tried to fuse this whole volumes with a minor curvature, which kind of calmly blends in. And we also had introduced this horizontal white lines and vertical terracotta fins. So you could see that there is a minor interplay of the rooms. If you could see, there is double windows and single windows for the rooms, and emphasized entry for the porch area, also for the arcade retail space. And the whole city, the mayor and the client was very happy with it. And it kind of, I also believe it truly sings. It's not too dominant. It's kind of subtle, and it has its own elegance. And yeah, coming to, I would slowly end towards few inputs from my side. Whatever, sorry, the slide is a bit cropped, but yeah. I strongly suggest you guys to kind of pick in few modeling techniques and diagrammatic techniques. Basically, the modeling techniques like laser cutting machine, the 3D print, the thermocol hot wire cutter, it's highly used in our practice, and it's very important to develop the designs. And Adobe tools like the InDesign and Illustrator is very important for the diagrammatic quality, and the diagrams are very important to present here in the European market. Definitely, the Dynamo and Revit is really picking up in the market. That's really monopoly and dominant. And I also would suggest maybe the school submissions, unit submissions could embed using the enhanced capacity of the software like scheduling and quantities and etc. And one more thing is to be more competent in future, Python scripting and C# is really getting stronger. So I highly recommend you guys to pick it up. Also Unreal, Unity, who are interested in the gaming arena. And also there are fantastic tutorials. I'm sure you know Linda and Think Parametric has fantastic videos, but these are apparently paid, but of high value. So investing in as a group and making a shared password or something and trying to learn and picking up is fantastic, or more like an after class, because you really need to be competent, or else it's really getting more and more tough. And I really highly recommend you guys to pick it up and try to test in the university level itself. And also try to involve in the online student competitions. Like there are few websites, a few of you know Bustler, Evolo, Young Architects. ArcBazaar and Co-Contacts is more like a crowdsourcing platform, which is also interesting for a small pocket money. But Young Architects and all has really interesting video and the presentations, which could be even used as a university class project. And if you guys are interested, you can also submit it. And even you can also see what the other people throughout the world submit as well. And just a few new classification. I think many of you would know urban planning, interior design, and product design, whatever. I would just hit on UX and user interface design. It's really picking up in the European and American market. People with architecture bachelor degree are also doing quite well in this domain with a master's in this. And obviously VR, AR gaming platform, sustainability is also a very hot topic. And yeah, a lot of buildings also need a heavy, huge facade specialist. And I also just want to point in the future after the virus crisis, do look into internships in China, because China, there are fantastic international offices and local offices. So to get an international experience, that would be definitely a good start. And thanks a lot for listening. There are two videos following this presentation, and you can definitely keep in touch and shoot for any queries. Thank you.
Thank you, Shiraz, for that very crisp presentation. We will just have the videos on in a couple of minutes. Yes. Sarna Raja, sir. Shiraz, you can stop your screen sharing so the video can come. Sarna Raja, sir, you're in. I think, yeah, he started the screen share.
Yes.
Is it visible?
Audio. So this is a presentation what we did in university. So basically it's a study of Amsterdam city, and we had pixelized the Amsterdam map as you see in the screen, and the whole maps and the study maps were projected on it. It's more projection mapping technique what we have used using After Effects, and it was quite impressed, and a lot of people had given a very positive feedback. The experience, there is also background music. I don't know why the audio is not playing, but there is also background music to it. So it's more like a interactive presentation what we had attempted, and it was definitely fantastic, and I'm really happy about it.
Shiraz, if you can just give a little more insight into what those images that showcase on these grids are.
Yeah, for sure. Basically, the whole project was on housing, Amsterdam housing. So we had studied the city, the economics, the housing, how housing evolved, housing typologies evolved, And we also were asked to predict the future possibilities, where it's projecting, and how architecture should change accordingly. So it was a very intensive study, and we also had developed totally new typologies. So this images and the presentation had our analytics, our statistics, also our video documentation, photo documentation of Amsterdam. Yeah, I think we could go to the second video.
Yes.
So this is the luminaire which I shared, the lighting installation from Frankfurt by a college. So you could see the node, a prototype with the LED strips behind. This was more in a test in our workshop. But we had a failure in this, to be honest, because when we tested as a single node, it was good and stable. But when we added multiple nodes, it started sagging because of the weight. So if you see the whole, the mammoth form was a bit grounded. So that was one error we understood after the assembly. The whole 7,700 units came from China, and it was assembled here in Frankfurt. We had sent them all the laser cut CAD files for the factory.
Raja sir, you can stop the screen share. Yes, very interesting. Can you enlighten us on the installation that you showed us later? What is the relevance of installations in your urban plazas or in the European scenario? Because we don't see of much of these art installations or these kind of installations in our Indian market. So how is it relevant, or how can we improvise on those kind of aspects as a designer?
There are
Shiraz, you can be a little louder. Louder.
Yeah. There are various levels I've encountered here. One is the government itself has this art body or a body to support these platforms. So they have this various open plaza. Definitely, European cities everywhere, they have these open plazas, public plazas, where there is space for these activities. Even the government supports it. So there are these kind of government supported activities which comes in. So it's not only architects, interior designers, it's also artists, sculptures which also pitch in or take part in it. And sometimes there are also this expos. The city has this big expos. When these expos happen, these plaza also gets activated as a part of this expo. So some elements or some part of the expo is also showcased here. And obviously, definitely, like urban sculptures are quite predominant in American and European markets. So you could see some interactive, something a wow sculpture at one or two places for sure. So an Indian market, I believe we should start at a university level, for example, or as a communal level. We do have a shortage of space. So we could have like a demo or a trial level. So it's not permanent. And if we have a support from the municipality or something, we could have a permanent level of sculptures. But definitely as an attempt or a picture, we should kind of initiate it. So they have imaginary, bureaucrats have the image. Okay, this is quite good. People overseas also have something like this. So this would be probably a way to kind of crack for us for Indian market.
Okay, we have a couple of questions from the students that are coming in.
Yeah.
How do we merge traditional and vernacular aspects into modern and parametric design?
It's a very relevant and a good question. Vernacular thing is, I would say we should try to really catalog things. For example, if it's vernacular, okay, what are the basic elements? Try to really catalog the basis. So we have the basic elements, and other thing is concepts. What are the concepts embedded? For example, it could be Katrapandal or the wind movement, the wind catcher. So what are the, or like Chettinad courthouses, the courtyard. So try to categorize or catalog these things. It could be architecture elements. It could be spatial features. It could be like a design or more like a sustainably climatic aspect. So try to analyze it in a better depth, then these catalogs try to change these parameters. For example, if it is like a single courtyard, like a multiple courtyard or an interlocking courtyard, try to change the parameter values to it. Or if it's like wind catcher, if it's like one type of wind catcher in a one form, try to retune it in a different way or different form. So that thing is, the whole base is like you should have the base catalog really well documented. Try to manipulate it. Try to have a fresh look. But my suggestion is don't make it complex. You should have the vernacular spirit with a little of modern, a cleaner, a more finer touch.
Okay. Next one. Do the clients ask for contemporary concepts or the firm proposes it? When we propose non-linear concepts, does the client understand them? How is the reception?
It depends. Sometimes if you have already worked with the clients, you know how his acceptance level would be. Sometimes we have this budget constraints. Some people, although they have budget, they are like, they just want the normal things. So it depends from client to client. But if we really tell the client that there is a value formation to it, okay, you are investing a little more than the regular buildings, then your architecture, your structure has a better value, a better image, a better response from new, sub tenants. Then that would be the catch point. Plus, also, if it is you are trying to embed sustainability concepts in a nicer, smart way, you can also say how he would be saving on a longer span. So it's at the end, this is also principle by founder UN Studio of value formation. How your architecture brings more value to the owner, how he can be more proud, how it's not from the not the regular one. So you need to smartly convince him how you create value with the architecture.
Very nicely put, Shiraz. We have a very interesting question. I think it's from a student. Can you give a brief on how is life different from Kerala to Frankfurt? And how is it different from your bachelor school to your present scenario as an architect?
I would say it's a transformation. It's like a decade almost. I passed out in 2010, and it's a decade I've been out of Chennai. And for me, I was happy that okay, I had cracked a very nice Bangalore companies, starting with Architecture Paradigm, and it's also sometimes luck and the timing. I had 2 years I handled from starting to end, so I had the strong base foundation, how the architecture works, how the industry works, and that had a good foundation for me. And also software, I picked up some software quite in depth, especially Revit. I always went to Tambaram during my third year, really pushed it on, really
IFX,
implemented.
I guess. Yeah.
So, and that really helped me a lot in my professional line. And definitely in Europe, it's a bit of change for sure. It's more organized. You are dedicated, and everything is in structure. And the commitment, if someone say yes, it will come. If something is that point, you have to satisfy that requirement. So it's a little more orderly fashion, and you can really project yourself, my career or professional or personal life for next 6 months or 1 year. So it's a little more structured, I would say. But professional life, especially as an architect, it's really tough. We have a lot of regulations here: the fire regulation, the the quality of the material, the durability of material, to the climate, the sound control. It's like a huge bunch of rules. So that's a whole task that India, altogether.
Yeah. A couple of more questions before we wrap up. How are you designing those fins? Are they designed after considering the solar angles? Because it looks like some pattern is throughout the building.
Yeah, I do agree that because sometimes these fins they are along the curve, and they are for aesthetics. And this building didn't follow any solar as such. It was more for the aesthetical value to the building. Because you can divide the two into two. I would say that definitely responsible ones are according to the solar angles and the fins act accordingly. And these ones are pure site responsive and aesthetical approach, because we have neighboring buildings, and definitely there is a solar cut. If you have a standalone buildings and you have direct solar on it, yes, you can control it. But if you have a neighboring buildings which project shadow on it, there's no point to have solar oriented fins. And in Europe, Europe, we have shortage of sunlight also, so only peaks 1 or 2 months. This is quite effective. Otherwise, we need a lot of daylight.
Okay. On that note, role of hypersurfaces in contemporary architecture. Can you give a few insights regarding this?
I really don't know what, or I didn't get the point of hypersurfaces.
I think they are meaning the hyperbolic parametric surfaces, all the curvilinear structures, or the boblic and.
I would say my take is like this: these non-linear or hypersurfaces is definitely expensive, and they also need a really good digital expertise, not only designing but also manufacturing. It needs to be rationalized, so you need a good expertise to rationalize and to produce that. And on top of that, you need to also climatically check it, because waterproofing, how it reacts to the climate. So there is a lot of layers to it. So if you have, if that, those and also expense technical experts, if everything encloses, yes. Like for example, a project like Zaha Hadid or Franco Gehry or something like that, that's a huge investment going in. Everyone cannot build it, so it's a very small niche market, I would say. But if you can streamline to more workable solutions, for example, triangular panelization, that's very workable. Or if you can streamline the curvature to flat planar geometry, that's also producible. So it should be a little more effective, producible, and a bit more smart approach. You cannot really complicate it. That's definitely not workable, and it's too expensive. If at a smaller level, I would say have a smarter approach of panelization, triangulation, or curvature geometry as a flat planar sections. That's feasible.
Yes, I think they had a couple of sessions on the parametric architecture, and that's synced in, and that's coming out today, I guess. What is the difference between construction techniques in European countries and India? Do you think fins and lamella would be suitable to the Indian context? And what are the facade materials you would recommend to achieve that?
Yeah,
do you want me to repeat,
yeah, please.
Shiraz?
Yeah,
yes.
Would be good, yes.
Yeah, the difference between the construction techniques in European countries and India. And do you think fins and lamella would be suitable to Indian context? What are the facade materials you would recommend to achieve that?
So coming to the construction techniques, definitely we have a huge differences, not huge, enormous differences in terms of the insulation, the waterproofing, the climate durability, materials detail. What goes in here is crazy. I would say it's at least 3-4 times expensive, or but it's also highly technical aspects. So we in Indian construction industry, we need to develop a lot. So
Point
we are,
noted for all the younger architects, I guess.
yeah. And the coming to the fins and facade technology, it's a bit difficult, and you really need a good facade expert to it. And good brands, it's not that difficult, because good brands like Schuko, Vicona, we can embed these kind of facade fins into their glass members. It's not that difficult as we see. And few of the structures in Delhi and Bombay, they have started to embed it. It's a bit tough. You need a good expertise and people to working on it.
Okay. And the last one, non-technical question to you, Shiraz. What makes you a proud architect today?
That's also
that's like on a closing note. So what makes you a proud person? You can talk about your experience in SRM as well. So your journey as an architect or a person in the sense.
I would say the SRM. My 5 years of SRM, I had the opportunity to have a couple of wonderful professors and young ones, to be honest. And I'm really happy about it. They had also put a lot of efforts, even evenings, trying to train and support with their best. And also my base professional practices in India, which gave my foundations to the actual real architecture construction industry, at Paradigm, Architecture Paradigm, and as well as Tabadi before my masters. That was like a base, I would say. And my masters, that was a point where it's a change of thought process. You try to rethink the way you look at things, how you attempt the design. So that I had a lot of changes in my masters, as well as a huge international architects influences in terms of the design approaches, aesthetical approaches. And over the period of time, I feel I've been happy last 3 years at the recent firm. I had the opportunity to be closely involved in a lot of design works, and the end product, when you see it, okay, you had at least attempted something nice, something good for society, and I'm also happy with it. So that happiness, when it's built, when it's you have achieved, that gives me happiness, and that also motivates me to work, because you should be also end of the day happy to go work, because sometimes it's stress submission, but end of the day, why you make it, the image, the feel, the how it sets into the urban context, how the people accept it. So end of the day, I'm also happy to be an architect. And yeah,
Thank you, Shiraz. Thank you for that wonderful session. I would like to ask our Dean to say a few words on the presentation as well as the session, sir. Sir?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yes, sir.
Actually, I was enjoying your session very much, but the point is, you said you're young, but your presentation was more matured.
okay.
So it was very nice presentation, sir. Please keep contributing more. Also, once this pandemic stage is over, we invite you to our institution. Kindly share your intelligence to these young minds, and let's grow together. Thank you so much for
Thanks a lot, sir. Yeah. And thank you for the time, and I wish you all the best with future presentations. And it's a great initiative.
Thank you, Shiraz.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, sir. I thank all the participants who've tuned in today. I think it's a complete marathon that we are running from session 1 to session 2. And we're also off to session 3 at 5:30. We have the celebrity talk by architect Saranjit Singh, and hope to see you all there. The next few sessions are going to be interesting, coming ahead from Alumni Talk 11 to 15. So I hope you all register and have fun in the further sessions ahead.
I would like to add up a few more points with Madam.
Yes, sir. Please.
Architect Saranjit Shah from 5:30 onwards, 5:30 to 6:30, is a very senior architect from Delhi, and he has done most of the airports in the country. And you can Google him and see. And he's a versatile architect, and he's a veteran